Here's a battle city where they start to become more like puzzles. Dreams come true. Wishes make dreams become reality. In this one, we have 3 level 50 Pokemon versus a single Primeape. That might seem unfair at first, but the first 2 are going to go down in 1 hit each, as the Primeape has a move that's 4 times effective against Sneasel and is super effective on the incredibly fragile Pikachu. Also note that Pikachu does not have a Light Ball, so this Pikachu is meant more for support than for attacking. And so is the Sneasel. Basically, only Snorlax stands a chance of defeating the Primeape in the end, but because Snorlax is weak against Primeape, it's going to need a little bit of help to actually deal with it. Something else to note, Pikachu's speed here, 95. That is slightly slower than Primeape, and Pikachu has to outspeed the Primeape to get the move in. So, there is a fixed strategy that we need to use for this fight. So let's put that strategy into effect. 3-on-1, let's go. Back in here again. So, round 1, Sneasel versus Primeape. We need to Icy Wind the Primeape here. Nothing else will do. You could try and set up a Reflect, but I prefer to go for Icy Wind. Don't bother with Counter, Sneasel will not survive a single hit, so Counter will be completely pointless. If Icy Wind misses, you'll probably have to just reset this battle CD. Now that Primeape's speed is down, that is exactly what we wanted. Sneasel has done his part. Your sacrifice will not be in vain. And hopefully Pikachu's sacrifice will not be in vain either. Because Pikachu will not last a single turn either, but that 1 turn is all Pikachu needs. We need to go for Wish here. As you can tell by the name of this battle CD. Wish is the key here. Yeah, Pikachu is not surviving an Earthquake coming from a Primeape. So, enter our final Pokemon, and the one that will finally stop this beast for good. There are a few approaches that you can take to this. All of them rely on Wish, but do not use Belly Drum. Belly Drum will put you into KO range of Primeape's Brick Break, so it'll make all your efforts go to waste. Some people like to use Curse here. Curse can work. Personally, I like to just go for Shadow Ball. And just go for straight up attacking it. Now, if the Primeape gets a critical hit on any of these turns, it will end this run for you, so you'll have to restart the battle CD. That's a shame. It's another one of these battle CDs that you can just lose due to bad luck. So here's where the Wish takes effect. Snorlax heals for 50% of its max HP. Its max HP. Wish works a little differently in later generations, but thankfully it works this way in Gen 3, and that's the way we need it to work. You could also go for Yawn if you want, that's another option. Really, no matter what you do, Snorlax just needs to survive for a few extra turns, and that's the extra time that Wish buys us. So with that, that's enough time to take down the Primeape. Like I said though, there are a few ways that you can do that. You can go for Yawn, although then you have to worry about the Primeape waking up early. You can go for Curse, just as long as you don't go for Belly Drum. As you can see from how much damage the Primeape was doing with Brick Break, Snorlax will faint if you try and go for Belly Drum. Even though the Wish Belly Drum combo is usually pretty decent. So for completing that battle CD, we get an Ice Heal. So what advice do you have for this battle CD? This is actually quite helpful. The key here is make its Wish work before it can be defeated, and that's where Sneasel's Icy Wind comes into play. Because if you don't drop Primeape's speed, Pikachu will not be able to get Wish off before it's defeated. This battle CD teaches us a few things about the move Wish. Firstly, it can affect any Pokemon on the user's team, not just the user itself. An aspect that the move's in-game description doesn't really make clear, especially before Generation 5. Pre-Generation 5, Wish heals the recipient for half of its max HP, meaning that this Snorlax got much greater of a benefit than the Pikachu would have. And as you can see here, Wish support can help Pokemon win matchups they would otherwise struggle with. Another lesson is that dropping the opponent's speed with Icy Wind can help your other Pokemon outspeed things they wouldn't otherwise be able to, and in this case, help get off certain strategies. Wish has undergone a few changes over the generations. In Gen 4, the timing of Wish regarding switch-ins to replace fainted Pokemon is different than it was in Gen 3, but the biggest change came in Gen 5, where Wish now heals for half the user's maximum HP, regardless of the recipient's HP. This can be both good and bad. The good, if a Pokemon with a massive HP stat like Blissey or Vaporeon uses Wish, the recipient might get healed for a lot more than they would otherwise, making those Pokemon excellent users of Wish. The bad? This battle CD would have been a lot more difficult if it had taken place in Generation 5, because Pikachu with its pathetic HP stat would not be healing Snorlax for very much. Battle CD 7 is one of the CDs that you start with, Machamp's Macho Romp. The stronger the foe, the hotter it gets. It has a difficulty of 2 stars, but I actually find it easier than some of the others, like this one for example is probably harder. Anyway, we've got a bit of a David versus Goliath situation here. We've got a level 20 Machamp versus a level 50 Aggron. Also, something funny about this battle CD, this is an illegal Machamp! Hack alert, hack alert! Machamp cannot naturally learn Swords Dance, so that's kind of weird that they're giving you an outright illegal Pokemon, but I won't question it. So these round moves, and what we're up against is an Aggron with Protect, Counter, and Dig. Thankfully, they're showing mercy on us. If they didn't, we would easily lose this. Let's see if Machamp can pull off this title bout. Through the power of cheating, actually. We're in the Cave Pokespot this time, which is fitting for what we have to do. In the red corner, it's the Iron Menace Aggron! And in the blue corner, it's the underdog level 20 Machamp! So first we have to even the odds a bit by going for our illegal move, Swords Dance. This is another situation where the AI just goes through its moves one after the other, and you need to know this because if you go for Earthquake any earlier than you're supposed to, you will get counted into oblivion. So we have to go for a second Swords Dance here. We're now at +4 to our attack stat, we've avoided that counter, and now we have to use Earthquake, which, if done right, will catch the Aggron while it's underground. Earthquake, much like Gust against Fly, can hit Pokemon that are underground with Dig, and it does double damage when it does so. Aggron is already quad weak to Earthquake. We also have 2 Swords Dances, so that's more than enough to take out a Pokemon that is more than double our level. A pretty simple CD overall once you know what you have to do. So for finishing that CD, we get another Great Ball. The advice for this one is pretty straightforward, and this is exactly how you have to win this. Just remember though that Aggron will not use Dig until the 3rd turn. If you go for Earthquake on the 2nd turn, you will get counted into oblivion. What did we learn from this battle CD? Well, we learned that you can cheat and teach your Machamp Swords Dance. Just kidding. What we really learned was that Earthquake can hit Pokemon that are underground with the move Dig, and it does double damage when it does so. And considering how powerful Earthquake is already, digging Pokemon really don't want to be caught by it. By the way, this is also true of Magnitude, though Earthquake is generally more reliable. Note that a Pokemon that would be immune to Earthquake or Magnitude anyway, like a Claydol with Levitate, or a Gligarv due to its flying type, they'll still be immune to Earthquake and Magnitude, even if they're digging. Not much has changed since then, except that the ability No Guard, introduced in Generation 4, allows you to hit Pokemon that are using Dig with any move. And seeing as Machamp gained that ability in Gen 4, it wouldn't have needed Earthquake to hit this Aggron anyway. Battle CD 8, Zangoose vs CRADILY, taking the battle to a defense-only foe. I hate this battle CD so much. Now, the actual game mechanic that it's teaching you about is a good lesson to teach new players, but it's frustrating because it's still reliant on luck whether you win or not. So let's check this. We have a Zangoose that has a scope lens, and it has Slash, Swords Dance, Rock Smash, and Flamethrower. We're up against a level 50 CRADILY, that's 5 levels higher than our Zangoose, that has a lot of defensive moves, it has high defensive stats in its own right, resists most of our attacks, and has Ingrained to gradually recover its health and leftovers. So, here's the thing. If you know anything about the way that Pokemon works, you'll probably know how they want you to win this. The problem is, it's still very luck reliant, and I really don't like that, because I'm someone who was born with a naturally low luck stat. But anyway, let's try to do this. It may take me a few attempts. Let's go. So, here comes the CRADILY. Now, the first stage of this battle is before the luck-reliant part kicks in. You want to maximize your Swords Dances. Always go for 3, you will need it. Every Swords Dance is +2 to your attack stat, I mean in terms of like +2 stages, so at the maximum number of Swords Dances, you'll have a pretty huge multiplier. CRADILY likes to start off by using Ingrain, which will mean that it gradually regains health if it's damaged, and that combines with leftovers, and then it will start spamming Barrier. Each barrier gives it +2 defense, so that neutralizes one of your Swords Dances. However, if you get a critical hit, it ignores the opponent's defense boosts, while still keeping your attack boosts. So, if I hit for a critical, I will be doing as much damage as I would have done with max Swords Dances and no defense boosts on the CRADILY. The most reliable way to do this is to use Slash. Slash has a high critical hit ratio, which means it has +1 critical hit stage, and with the scope lens item held, that's another +1. So here's how critical hit stages work. If a Pokemon has no critical hit stages, that is, if you're using not a high critical hit ratio move and you don't have a scope lens and nothing else boosting your crit ratio, you have a 1 in 16 chance of a critical hit. If you've got 1 critical hit stage, so say Slash alone with no scope lens, that's doubled, so it's a 1 in 8 chance of a critical hit. Every extra stage doubles it again, so Slash and Scope Lens boosts it up to a 1 in 4 or a 25% chance of a critical hit, and that's sadly as far as we can go. We only need to get 1 critical, but if we get really unlucky and don't get any, this battle can go very badly. Thankfully, CRADILY only has Acid to damage you, and it's really not all that strong of a move. As you can see here, most of our effort from that pathetically weak Slash is going to be undone thanks to both the Ingrain and the leftovers. We have to hope and pray for a critical, basically. So, there's another non-critical. The other annoying luck-based aspect of this fight is that Acid can drop your defense, and if it does, then you're basically on an even harsher timer to get a critical. At this point, it basically comes down to, can you get a critical before you get KO'd by Acid? There's the critical! So provided that you do, as long as you have maximized Swords Dances, you win this battle instantly. You just need to make sure that you actually do get the crit, so it requires a little bit of luck, but statistically speaking, you probably should get it in at least 5 or 6 attacks. So for completing battles to D8, we get a Super Potion. Kind of feel like we should have got a scope lens for that, but anyway.
It basically becomes a race to see if you can get that critical hit in before CRADILY slowly wears you down with Acid. The annoying thing about Acid is that Acid can drop your defense, which makes it even more likely that you'll faint to Acid without getting a critical off. But, yeah, also as you can see, non-criticals barely do anything to this CRADILY thanks to all of that regeneration. Okay, there's another non-critical. Like I said though, you only need to crit once, provided that you have 3 Swords Dances, so make sure that you do that. Otherwise this fight is even more luck-based. Well, there's a defense drop. Third Slash. Can we get the crit here? Nope. And 4th Slash. Statistically speaking, it should critical. Nope. We only have 1 more chance. Can we get the crit now? no! You see why I hate this battle city? I really hate this battle city. I hate it so much.
So what's the advice you get here? This doesn't fully explain it, but this is the general gist of it. Critical hits ignore any defense buffs on the opposing Pokemon. This includes Reflect and Light Screen. It's not just moves like Barrier. As annoying as this battle CD is, it does teach a valuable lesson. In addition to doing double damage, critical hits also ignore any defense boosts that the opponent may have. In Generation 1 they screwed this up and critical hits ignore all stat modifiers, positive and negative, but in later generations, critical hits only ignore stat modifiers that would negatively affect their damage. That means that if the target has reduced defense, that will still apply. It's only raised defense that gets ignored. This is a very valuable thing to know, because it means there is still hope if you're facing a Pokemon that has maximized its defensive stats. It's also why competitive players will begrudgingly accept critical hits as a part of the game, mainly because they discourage excessive stalling. Something that I only just found out when doing research for this is that starting in Generation 3, critical hits do not ignore the attack drop from Burn. What's changed? Well, starting in Generation 6, Game Freak made a lot of modifications to how critical hits work. Firstly, they now only do 1.5 times the damage instead of double. But they also changed how critical hit stages work. There was no change to 0 or 1 stage, so those chances are still 1 in 16 and 1 in 8 respectively. But starting in Generation 6, a Pokemon with 2 critical hit stages now criticals 50% of the time, and if you have 3 or more stages, you are guaranteed to get a critical hit on every attack. This made movesets based entirely around getting critical hits a lot more viable. Generation 7 also changed things. There was no change to the way that stages 1 or above work. So 2 stages is still 50% and 3 or more is still 100%. However, the default critical hit ratio, so that is if you have no critical hit stages at all, has been reduced to 1 in 24 rather than 1 in 16. It actually took people a while to figure this out, because there were no other changes to the critical hit formula. It's interesting to consider how different this battle CD would be if it was done in Generation 6. On the one hand, you'd have a much higher chance of getting the critical hits you need, but on the other, according to a damage calculation that I did, you would actually need 2 critical hits to win the fight rather than 1. Battle CD 9, Color Change Carnival, Duke It Out with KECLEON. This is one of the battle CDs that you have to buy from the reception counter after you've completed 2, 3, and 4. So for this one, it's kind of an interesting one. It's a double battle, and we have 4 level 25 Pokemon versus 1 level 50 KECLEON. The KECLEON has Aerial Ace and Thunderbolt, which means it's got super effective moves against both our leads, which is unfortunate. And its stats are looking pretty impressive compared to ours. We need to use some teamwork to take it down. As you can see, we've got a variety of different attacks, but as the title of this battle CD implies, we need to rely on abusing KECLEON's own ability. Poor KECLEON, its ability is really more of a liability to itself than anything else. It's pretty much a bad thing in most situations, as you'll see here. So, it's KECLEON versus the world, and we have to make sure that the world wins here. Now, what we do need to pay attention to here is the speeds of our Pokemon. Who goes first in this situation? So, I'm going to go for an Ancient Power to try and turn the KECLEON into a Rock type, and then following it up with Revenge on Hitmonchan. Mach Punch would strike first, so that wouldn't work. If I was going for Mach Punch, I'd have to go Mach Punch and then Aerodactyl Wing Attack. Basically, you want to turn it into a type that your other Pokemon can hit for super effective damage. So actually, I might want to go for the Mach Punch Wing Attack combo. In fact, that's a better idea, because Mach Punch will be super effective against Normal type, which is what the KECLEON starts out as. So, firstly we go for the Mach Punch, and then hopefully Aerodactyl gets its Wing Attack in before KECLEON can go. Turn it into the Fight type. And yes, Aerodactyl is really fast, so it outspeeds a Pokemon that's double its level. Typical Aerodactyl. It is now a Flying type, which means that it now has same type attack bonus on Aerial Ace, so Hitmonchan is definitely gone. Okay, so KECLEON is a Flying type now. Let's see what my Hariyama has. No Mach Punch or anything. And my Girafarig mainly has Dark and Psychic moves. Okay, I'm going to go for Hariyama here. This is one of the first battle settings where you can actually be a little bit flexible with your strategy. So, that KECLEON is now Flying type. I'm going to use Ancient Power on Aerodactyl to turn it into a Rock type, and follow that up with Vital Throw is probably a little bit more reliable. Yeah, I'll go for Vital Throw from Hariyama. So that also hits it for super effective, but you are now a Rock type. And going for Thunderbolts to get rid of my Aerodactyl, most likely. But that's fine, because I've got a super effective Vital Throw coming right at you. Also, now that you're now a Fighting type, well, as of my next move will be a Fighting type, I can use Psychic on Girafarig to hit you for super effective damage again, so it's basically a game of just playing pinball with KECLEON's various types, making sure you're constantly hitting it for super effective damage. So I'll Psychic you, and after that I will, I guess I can just use Vital Throw. Doesn't really matter, because KECLEON's probably going to go down to this Psychic. This is a pretty fun battle city, making use of teamwork and remembering your own Pokemon's speeds to make sure you're constantly hitting the KECLEON for a chain of super effective moves. If that KECLEON had Protean, this would be a different story. So, for completing that battle city, we get a full heal. The advice for this battle CD should be pretty obvious. That's pretty much exactly what the color change ability says, so we didn't really need to know that, but you pretty much just have to abuse that and keep beating down that KECLEON with a string of super effective attacks. This is more of a fun gimmick battle CD than anything else, much like KECLEON itself, but it does teach us that KECLEON's color change ability can easily be used against it. In fact, if you manage to get KECLEON turned into a dragon or a ghost type, you can just keep smacking it with that type and continue to deal super effective damage. This ability is mostly for fun, and because of this, KECLEON is generally not a good Pokemon to use in serious play. I guess it can make KECLEON a niche special wall against choice attackers. And there's also the gimmick strategy of having KECLEON use Skill Swap to give the opponent color change and then spam Shadow Ball. But like I said, this ability is more of a fun gimmick than anything. Here's some trivia about color change. It doesn't work on shadow moves for obvious reasons, and if a Pokemon with color change is hit by a Weather Ball during Shadow Sky, it's treated as normal type. Also, moves will inflict their status conditions before color change takes effect. So, say a KECLEON gets hit by Poison Sting and gets poisoned. It'll still remain poisoned despite turning into a poison type, which is supposed to be immune to that condition. The color change ability hasn't changed throughout the generations, but what has is that KECLEON gained a new option in Generation 6, its hidden ability Protean. This is kind of the opposite of color change. It changes your type to match the type of the move that you use last. And anyone who's played Gen 6 competitively knows how infamously powerful Greninja is with this ability. So this is actually kind of a boon to KECLEON, and makes it a lot more useful than it previously was. Battle CD 10, Friends from the Moon. They have evolved beyond your primitive Earth battle CDs, a perfect combination of pals. So for this we have Clefairy and Clefable. Our Clefairy has Meteor Mash, Protect and Solar Beam, and our Clefable has entirely support moves and can't attack at all. So bear that in mind. If we lose Clefairy, we've essentially lost the battle. Our opponent is... they love using Aggron, don't they? It's an Aggron, and a level 51. But this time it's got Iron Tail and Double Edge, so no dig or counter for it. The main strategy here is to spam Solar Beam, but we need to make sure that Clefairy is kept protected. So, the Fairy team up versus Aggron. Let's do this. So it's 2-on-1, but one of us can't attack at all, so we need to keep the actual attacker protected. Here's what I like to do for the first turn here. I like to protect Clefairy and set up Sunny Day with Clefable. This ensures that I'm able to get Solar Beams off, which is going to be my main form of damage. And you went into the Protect, good. So now the sun is up, Clefairy can go ahead and start using Solar Beam, while Clefable uses Follow Me to draw attacks towards it. We want Clefable to sponge all of the attacks here, because if Clefairy goes down, like I said, we can't win this, because we have no way of doing damage. That hurt an awful lot, though. So we'll have to switch things up next turn. Also, we just got a critical, but doesn't really change how this plays out. I'm going to go for a Protect on Clefairy and have Clefable heal. Now, ironically, Moonlight heals more during sunny weather. Makes more sense with the Japanese name of Sunny Day, which is Clear Skies. But yes, Moonlight will be restoring more than it usually would, which is going to help keep Clefable healthy. And I want Clefable healthy because Clefable needs to keep drawing in those attacks and protecting its partner. Let's go for another Solar Beam, and let's go for another Follow Me. You can have Clefable use Cosmic Power to try and become even more bulky, but I prefer to just do things like this. That ought to buy Clefairy enough time to finish this off. I still think Solar Beam looks really cool in this game. Even though there was a critical hit there, the basic strategy remains the same if you don't get any criticals. You just need to kind of alternate between attacking with Clefairy, and whenever you need to heal Clefable, make sure Clefairy protects. And whenever Clefairy attacks, make sure you're using Follow Me with Clefable. Because, I'll keep saying this, if you lose Clefairy, it is all over. So, for winning that Battle CD, we get a full heal. The items will get better later, trust me. As for advice for this battle, you said exactly what I said many, many times, so glad the game agrees with me in this case. This CD teaches a few important things. Firstly, that Follow Me is an excellent move in duel battles. Like Helping Hand, it's another move that's often overlooked because it's useless in singles. But in duel battles, Follow Me will keep your partner Pokemon completely safe for a turn. And I can't even begin to explain all of the potential that has. You want the Pokemon using Follow Me to be able to take hits though. Check out the Pokemon 2014 Video Game Championships if you want a good example of how Follow Me can win you battles. The second lesson is also one that's important to know when playing doubles. Pokemon that are built purely for support with no attacking moves. You want to be very careful when using them in a duel battle. Well, for one, if you get taunted, they can't do anything. But secondly, these Pokemon will instantly lose you the game if you're left with just them. And if your opponent knows this, you can bet they'll capitalize on it. Because of this, I personally like to make sure that every Pokemon on my team has at least one damaging move. A few things have changed for Follow Me as the generations progressed. Starting with Generation 5, if the Follow Me user is grabbed by Skydrop, it stops drawing attention. In Gen 6, Follow Me's priority was nerfed from +3 to +2, which means that Fake Out now goes before it, and Extreme Speed might go before it depending on speed stats. Generation 5 also added a new variant of Follow Me called Rage Powder, which is pretty much the same move, except that Pokemon that are immune to powder moves, so in Gen 6 that's Grass types, Pokemon with Overcoat and Pokemon holding safety goggles, are not affected by it.